This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Short Stories, Tru Joi, Part 2. When we left off, we found out that Benjamin Woodrow Stevens Jr., also known as Lil Drow, Big Wood, and Woody, had been the man of the house since he was 4 years old when his father went to jail for murder and drug trafficking. His mother raised him and his sisters alone, and 10 years later, he became the family's provider. He'd also been the sole provider for his high school sweetheart, Tasha, when her parents died in a tragic accident. And Woody wasn't taking care of those people with a paycheck from McDonald's. He was working for the Notorious Five families. And while his relationship with Tasha was on again and off again, and she managed to have a baby by a dude who's doing 17 years in the pen, her latest stunt has resulted in them being off permanently. When Woody's grandmother died, his best friend and brother Q had recently returned to the nest. He'd left a job in Denver with a broken heart and went to his parents' home in Fort Worth, Texas, where they relocated after his younger brother graduated and went to college. Q was charting a new path for his own life, so when he came to New York for Woody's grandmother's funeral and the services were concluded, he said to Woody, "Wood, just move to Texas, bro. Get out of the life and come work with me. Obviously, there are things you can't do, but there's so much more that you can. I've decided to open up my own firm, and I'm trying to convince LJ to partner with me. If everything goes as planned, he'll keep his firm in North Carolina, but he'll leave Wesley in charge. You remember him, right?" When Woody said yes, Q said, "Well, we're going to need somebody like you. Somebody who can get into places we can't and connect with the people we can't. You'll never be in the positions you've been in working for the families. You'll still be making plenty of bread, but you'll be earning it legitimately." Woody said, "I'm not trying to be on payroll. I'm not a 401k type nigga. And I don't have no issue with what I'm doing now. Get your joint up and running. And if you need me, I ain't got no problem coming through Texas. But I ain't trying to make it a permanent move." Q said, "Bro, maybe if you get her out of New York, you sit down, you and Tasha." Woody cut Q off and said, "I don't know nobody named Tasha." Q said, "Come on, man, you been loving that girl your whole..." Woody cut him off again and said, "I don't know no broad named Tasha. I used to think I knew a broad named Tasha, but the woman I thought I knew became a broad I used to know when she killed my baby." Q said, "What? I know she was wrong, but think about who she is, what she's always meant to you, and the position she was in." Woody said, "Nigga, you defending her? What position was she in? The only position that broad ever been in was the position to have me paying all her damn bills out of her hair 4, 6, 8 months out the year, while she was face down for whoever, whenever. And she ain't had no problem having a baby with that dime bag dope boy. But she deleted mine over a bogus gun charge and a couple ounces? Nah, she want what I can't give. And she got rid of the only thing I wanted. So like I said, I don't know no broad named Tasha." Q said, "So what's next, Wood?" Woody said, "I'm going to go see Tough, make sure he's straight, and then I'm going to catch some flights. Put some premium liquor in my system, some exotic chicks in my bed, and when that get old, I'm going to go back to work." 6 months later, Woody called Q and told him he was ready to go back to work. While a lot had changed since Woody and Q were 15 and 16-year-old boys, when they'd eliminated King and everybody associated with the assault on Q's baby sister Anya, Q's uncle Samuel, his mother's younger brother, and the head of the Baptiste crime family, took a liking to Woody. While he couldn't get his nephews, Q and Donovan, to work for the family, there was nothing stopping him from recruiting Big Wood. There was one string attached, though. If Woody left New York City on a job for the families, Q had to know where he was going. Woody knew the risks of the life that he was living, and Q couldn't stop him from working for the families, but he wasn't willing to have something happen to his best friend, his brother, and he not even be able to trace him. The one time that he didn't know where Woody was, he'd been shot, and Q had to involve the Queen Mother. Bella Baptiste St. James was none too pleased to find out that her son's best friend, who was like a son to her, was caught up in the very business that she'd gotten out of and had successfully kept her sons out of. And when she laid down the law, the Five families understood that Woody didn't work anywhere without Q knowing about it. So in order for Big Wood to get back in the game, he needed Q to plug him back in. The families weren't pleased with the arrangement, but nobody wanted to cross the Queen Mother. So when Q plugged him back in, he left New York, and he was not seen again by anyone in New York, except for his mother and their childhood best friend, Tuff. Tuff was in prison in upstate New York, serving multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole, in connection with murders committed by their entire crew in retaliation for Q's baby sister's assault. Tuff and Stretch were caught red-handed. Stretch died, and Tuff took the ride. In exchange, Q and Woody make sure that Tuff have everything he needs. Constant contact with the outside world, and their support, love, and devotion. While Q does have to maintain some level of distance from Tuff because he's incarcerated, Woody's perfectly content being their middleman. And while Woody has made it a point not to ever enter into the drug game, having a father incarcerated for drugs and multiple family members who've had to fight addictions to drugs, Woody has never gone into that business. They say there's no honor among thieves. Well, if Woody was a thief, he'd be the exception. His involvement with the Five families and his connections to his father Big Drow's associates allow him to keep Tuff plugged in, which means that Tuff is running his own criminal enterprise on the inside. And the Five families don't even call him for jobs that are directly connected to that part of their business. While the relationship between Woody's mother, Miss Charlotte, and Tasha continued, his mother and the rest of his family knew that his whereabouts in business was not to be shared with Tasha. So, on one of his quick visits to New York City to see his mother, his sisters, and his brand new nephew, courtesy of his oldest sister, Zyla, Miss Charlotte said, "Lil Drow, you know what we should do? I want us to take a family trip at least once a year. Get the whole family together." Woody said, "Like a family reunion?" Miss Charlotte said, "Kinda, sorta, but not like the whole extended family, just our close circle. Victoria, Big Dre, Lil Dre, Deborah." Then she rattled off a few more aunts and uncles and cousins, their significant others. And she said, "But it would have to be adults only, because I want us to travel and drink and enjoy ourselves, just doing adult activities, gambling and blowing some trees if we want to. I don't want to have to worry about planning no activities that are kid-friendly or worrying about who's watching the kids or what the kids doing or if the kids is breaking something. Because your sister just had a baby, your cousin Deborah just had another baby, and people can bring their girlfriends and boyfriends, and them folks ain't really family yet. And you can bring whoever you seeing. I'm partial to Tasha, but you said y'all ain't getting back together, so." Woody had not told Miss Charlotte what Tasha did because he knew she would kill that girl. So he said, "If it's family, then I'll enjoy the family. And if you want other people to bring people, they can do that, but I'm not." Miss Charlotte said, "I know you not telling me you not seeing nobody, boy." Woody said, "I'm not seeing nobody that I want to introduce to my mother or that I want to bring on a family trip. I might meet somebody on the family trip." Miss Charlotte said, "How am I going to get some grandbabies if you don't sit down and take somebody serious?" Woody said, "You got a grandbaby. Zyla got a whole son." Miss Charlotte said, "And you don't think I want my only son to have some grandbabies? I want to be the grandmother on the father's side. Being the grandmother on the mother's side is too much work." Woody laughed and said, Ma, you crazy. I ain't having no kids. I ain't getting married. I ain't doing none of that stuff. You're going to have to let that go. Just let me know when this trip is going to be, where it's going to be, and I'll see if I can be there. Miss Charlotte said, now you know, this family, we can't afford no trip without you. Woody said, oh, you want me to take the family on a family trip. How often you want to do this? In the end, Miss Charlotte convinced Woody that he should pay for an annual family trip for the whole family. And Woody agreed that she could bring her siblings, their spouses, their adult children, his siblings, the close friends of the family who were like family. She could plan it, and he would pay for it once a year. He would provide a budget, and she had to stick to it. What he couldn't convince her to agree to was to not try to hook him up with somebody on these annual trips. So 3 years after his grandmother's death, 2.5 years after his return to work, the family had their first family vacation. And in true ghetto form, they went to Vegas. When the family returned to New York, and Miss Charlotte told Tasha about the vacation, Tasha was very upset that she hadn't been invited. Miss Charlotte said, girl, you and my son are no longer an item. This was a family vacation. And he gave me pretty strict instructions. And if I want to have a trip again next year, I certainly couldn't risk bringing you. The next year, they went to Miami. They rented a yacht, did the beach, clubbed, and shopped. And true to form, Miss Charlotte tried to hook him up with somebody. And once again, there was no Tasha. This year, she was having another baby with another dope boy. The next year, they went to New Orleans during Essence Festival. And while they were there, Woody got the call that Q had been shot in Dallas. He left the family to enjoy their trip, and he headed straight there. When he got there, the gang was all there. Q's parents, his siblings, his other best friend / brother LJ and his wife, and the woman he'd broken his own heart over, the one he left in Denver at that job, Angela. If you've been following Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, then you know that Q almost lost his life, but he gained a wife. Because Q came from such a tight-knit family, in addition to the individuals named, his aunt, uncle, and cousin, who also lived in Texas, were there. So were his godparents, the Charleses, and the wives of the heads of the families, and his first cousins, including his cousin, Salima. Woody and Salima hadn't seen each other in years. The last time he saw her, she was still a young tender, but she was a grown woman now. Now, Woody had a general rule. He really didn't deal with people who were associated with his work or associated with his family. And he was very much a part of Q's family. But growing up, little Salima had a crush on Big Wood. And now that they were both in their 30s, the age difference no longer mattered. But Woody had no plans to pursue anything with Salima. She was pushing up, though. What he didn't expect was that Salima would take her flirting to the next level. While he was visiting Q in the hospital, Salima walked in and said, "Oh, this is perfect. Just the two gentlemen that I needed to see." When Q said, "What's up, cuz?" Salima said, "So, I want your boy here. You got a problem with that?" Q had to hold his side because he was laughing, and laughing hurt. He said, "Yo, you bugging." Woody said, "Bro, I ain't." Before he could finish, Q said, "Y'all grown. I don't care what y'all do. Just don't hurt each other. And if y'all smart, you'll have a conversation with her father." Salima said, "Oh, I already did. He know how I get down. He ain't got no problem. I can handle my own. And if it is a problem, he'll handle it." Woody said, "Your cousin is like a brother to me." And Salima said, "And y'all don't share no blood." Woody said, "I do square business with your pops. I'm not the marrying type, and I'm not looking for no girlfriend. I'm sure we could have a lot of fun, but that's all it would ever be. And I wouldn't want you to be hurt. A scorned woman can mess up good business, ruin relationships, and get a nigga killed." Salima said, "I like what I like, and what I like ain't never been a problem. On the rare occasion that it even looked like a problem, it wasn't a problem on my end." Niggas tend to bite off more than they can chew. And then they feelings is hurt when I leave them thirsty. Q said, well, I think you two should go have a meal or some drinks and figure out how y'all can have some fun together without anybody getting hurt. Baby Q hadn't said nothing but a word. Woody and Salima headed to the bar at the hotel where Salima was staying, discussed the rules of engagement, and Woody was surprised to find out that Salima knew a whole lot about his work with her father and the other heads of the families. He was shocked that little Miss Salima wasn't nearly as innocent as he thought she was. Her father had allowed her to put in work for the families too. And she also wasn't looking for a boyfriend or a husband. She was a hairstylist in New York City, and that was a sufficient cover, but it was also her interest. By the time they were done talking, eating, and drinking, they were ready to take things to the next level. Salima looked at Woody and said, I feel like we just negotiated a contract. How about we go back to my room and seal the deal?